Yesterday, Ajahn was using the analogy of fire when you're in the wilderness to explain the purpose or the importance of sati, which is the word that we use for what is generally translated as mindfulness. In this teaching, the point is not to go into a lot of detail about precisely how to practice mindfulness, because we already have several videos about this, but it's more to give an understanding of what the role of mindfulness is, what's its place, what's its importance in the whole practice. And it's a fundamental importance. It's like the whole it is the base on which everything else you will do lies. But at the same time, it is not without kind of prerequisites. You need some things to begin with in order to practice sati. And how we will illustrate this is with a little story about being lost on a deserted island. So we have to imagine that we have become stranded somehow, let's say by, I don't know, a plane crash, or our boat has become lost or stranded on an island. And this island, we have to imagine, is not a warm desert island where things are easy and there's a lot of fresh fruit lying around and it's warm and no predators. We're in an island in the Atlantic Ocean, for example, where it is cold and where there is danger from wild beasts. And now we're basically stuck here, and the only thing we can do is to build ourselves a place to live, find a way to become independent here and find a way to live securely and safely. This situation is representing the one who realizes that he is a prey to suffering, that he is going to die, that he is going to get old, that he's going to get sick, and that he must prepare for these things. This kind of realization is a bit like realizing that one is lost on a deserted island where nobody can help you and nobody can save you. The only thing to do is to build a refuge for yourself. And in Dhamma, this basically means that one is practicing to become independent and free of all the suffering that we can have from things that get old, things that get sick, and things that die, including our own body, to become independent of this. So this is like somebody who wants to build a place even on this deserted, hostile island where they can live independently and safely. So what is the first thing that this person who is lost on the island, let's say you're lost on this island, what do you need first? What's the most important thing? What's the first thing that you need to do? The answer is that you will need fire. That's the most important before all else. It comes before finding food. It comes before building a shelter even. Fire is all important because it's this that will enable you to do everything else. It will allow you to protect yourself from wild animals. It will give you light to see in the dark. It will give you the ability to melt ice or snow if there's ice or snow on this island, and boil water if you're afraid the water is not safe to drink. It will give you the ability to cook, the ability to dry your clothes, and importantly, of course, it gives you a source of warmth to protect you from dying of hypothermia, gives you the ability to make tools in order to construct other things. So your fire is your food, your water, your heat, your light, your life. So what the fire represents is sati, and the fundamental importance of fire is also can be compared to the importance of mindfulness in the practice of Dhamma, because it's mindfulness that will allow you to protect yourself from kilesa, from defilements, from the 5 enemies, the 5 hindrances, in the same way that fire is what allows us to protect ourselves from wild predators if there are predators on our island. Sati is also the first of the factors of enlightenment, and it's from the base of sati that one can develop the other factors of enlightenment a bit like the fire is what gives us the ability to build other tools. Sati is also what allows us to start removing our ignorance, removing our blindness in regard to our own mind, in regard to our own experience, to see inside, to see how our emotions are born, to see how our actions are born, to understand how craving is born inside of us. Without mindfulness, without the practice of sati, all this is invisible to us. We're blind to it. So just like fire gives us the ability to see in the dark, sati gives us the ability to see inside ourselves. And it's also the basic thing that will prevent us from falling back in the practice, in the same way that fire will prevent us from dying of hypothermia or becoming too cold. So once we have understood, the first thing we have to understand is that as one who is on this deserted island, needing to construct himself a place of safety, we need fire. So that's the first thing we have to realize. Then, how do we go about getting fire? How do we go about making it? What do we do? So if we look in the material situation, there are many different ways of making fire, but let's say if suppose you have very, very few tools or very little available to you, the most basic way that one can create fire is with a bow drill. So using basically friction to make fire, using a plank of wood with another long stick that is rubbed into it to make friction. And the friction creates a spark that creates fire. So this might sound like something simple, but really, really it is not. If you've ever tried to make a friction fire, you will know that it's not something that just anybody can do without having any knowledge, without having studied it, without having practiced. It's not something easy or that simple. There are many conditions that will make it work or will make it not work. And if you haven't had somebody to explain to you or somebody to teach you how to do it, then it will be really, really difficult to be able to find out how to do it on your own, or almost, I would say, impossible. So, for example, if any of your material or if any of your environment is too humid, it's too wet, there is no way whatsoever that it can work. Everything must be dry, dry, dry. So that's the first condition that will mean that it's possible to make a fire or not possible to make a fire. Secondly, we need to choose the right wood with which to make our plank and our stick that's going to be rubbing into the plank. If we use wood that is green, there's no way it will work. It has to be dry wood. If we use wood that is too hard, it will not work. It has to be soft wood. So we can't use oak or ash, for example. We should use a wood like pine. If we use wood that is rotten, it will not work either. So we need to know what kind of wood we need to use, and we need to be able to find the right kind of woods. Then we need to know how to gather all the different kinds of wood that we're going to need to light our fire. We need to have something as tinder with which to light the spark. We need to know where to find all of these types of wood, how to gather them up. We need to know that we can't just make a spark without having all our wood already ready. It will be totally useless. We will waste our energy. And then finally, let's suppose we have the right wood, we have dry conditions, we have our place prepared, we have everything prepared, but then we have to actually go about making a spark with our bow drill. And even this, there has to be known the right method, the right way to go about it. If you try to go about it wrongly, then you will lose a lot of time, at best, a lot of energy, and even you can injure yourself by doing it the wrong way. So just as there are proper conditions for setting up a friction fire, or for, in fact, any fire, so there are proper conditions for setting up mindfulness and the right practice of Dhamma. So many people, for example, will try to just start right away with sitting in meditation and concentrating. But this is just like somebody who gets their pieces of wood for a bow drill fire, and without collecting any wood, without checking if their environment is wet or dry, without taking care of any of the conditions to make it work, you just start to rub and rub and rub and try and make friction. But even supposing you manage to make a spark, where are you going to put that spark? It will just die and be of no use whatsoever, because you didn't do things in the right order. So trying to practice the Buddha's teaching by just sitting down and trying to concentrate is as useless as this. You have to see what has to be set up, what has to be established first. And so those things would be, first of all, morality, meaning not just only practicing the 5 precepts, which is the bare minimum, but establishing the context of morality first in all that we do. The aim of being only good, doing only good with our mind, with our speech and with our body. This could be compared to having a dry environment, having dry materials in fire making, for example. If it's not there, then no matter what you do, nothing will work. Related to this would be things like having the necessary qualities, developing the necessary qualities in order to be able to practice well. So the qualities of determination, of faith, of effort, of patience, generosity, compassion. This could be compared to gathering the right kind of wood. If one of the qualities is undeveloped or is missing, for example, if we lack renunciation, then we can never practice properly. We can never have the force to practice properly. It would be like having rotten wood. And then finally, even supposing all this is there, we need to have the directions, instructions from one who knows how to meditate, how to practice correctly. Just as we need to have been taught how to use a bow drill correctly to make a spark and to make fire. So then, even suppose we manage to make a spark. We've done everything right so far. We make a spark. So we have the practice of sati. But now we're not done. In fact, this is in a way only the beginning. Now we need to be able to use our fire correctly and to be able to carry it and not let it die. Because if we allow it to die, now we have to do all this work again, and we will have a lot of regret. So suppose even we do let our fire die once, then we think, okay, now I have to find a way to keep it. So we find a way to keep it by using a piece of chaga mushroom or a piece of ember that we can keep in a box. This way we can use our ember, which is still having the little spark of the fire inside, and take this to light a new fire again. This is compared to using effort and using different ways that we can to stay mindful throughout the day. Even if we don't have mindfulness with us, if we don't have sati with us continually, we can use tag questions, things like present or useful, to remind ourselves, to remind our mind of where is your mind? What is going on? Is it useful what you're doing? Is it useful what you're thinking? So to repeat these things, to repeat whatever way we might find, there's no one technique that we can just use automatically and that will work, but to find ways to keep our mind in Dhamma, in meditation throughout the day, even if it's not there all the time with us, as it never will be in the beginning. We will lose it and we have to bring it back and bring it back and bring it back. So this is compared to the stage of having a piece of chaga or an ember that we're carrying with us, but that still needs to be relit at the end of the day. So now let's say we are carrying our fire like this on our deserted island and we wonder, can we do better? Suppose we find, let's say, a beehive and we think, okay, what if I used this wax from the beehive to make a candle? So now I would be able to carry around with me not only the spark, not only the ember of the fire, but the flame. So then whenever I need it, I have it with me and I can just light my fire. What this represents is that as we develop sati further, we develop it to a stage where the mind is trained to be with sati, trained to think with sati, trained to act with sati, trained to speak with sati, so that it's always with us. No matter what we want to do, we can do it mindfully, knowingly, and therefore we can use wisdom instead of acting on the base of ignorance or emotion. And so this is like having our flame, our candle that we can carry with us and use for whatever purpose we might need it. Yet even here, the problem with the candle for the one who's on this deserted island is that if there is a storm or it rains or he falls, it's easy to lose. So even this sharpness of the mind, similarly, we might have it for a day or two, but it's very easy to lose. It's not something like a permanent state that you just reach. It's not that you can just relax and leave it be, because you will lose it. So the next stage with the fire is that our character who is on their desert island can decide to create a storm lantern for themselves. So to make a protection for their flame, such that even if it rains, even if there is wind, it will not go out the flame. And so this is like when one has seen Dhamma, so being at least Sotapanna or higher. At this stage, then no matter what condition you are in, your mindfulness doesn't leave. You don't lose your understanding. You don't lose your perspective on things. You can never fall back and go backwards in the practice. From now on, it's only up. No matter if you're in the worst condition possible, there's no possibility to suffer from it in the same way as before. And there's no way that it will cause you to lose faith in the Dhamma or to stop practicing somehow. So I hope this little story with fire and being on a deserted island can illustrate a bit the purpose of sati in regard to the Buddha's teaching, and how you can't just arrive and hope to make fire with friction right away, but you need the conditions in order to do so. You need right instruction in order to do so. And how then also afterwards you don't just stop with fire. What will you do with it then?